Well, welcome everyone to the ATX DAO Podcast. We are excited to continue our series. So if you tuned in last week, we talked about the process of founding a startup. Today, we're going to go a little bit deeper and talk a little bit about the funding process and really kind of what that looks like, all the way from how does funding work, why do you need funding, should you get funding, all the way through some of the ways that you do it and things from there. So Ash, excited to dig into that with you.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked. And viewer discretion advised. Once again, my dirty pirate mouth, it doesn't hold things back. And also not to mention the fact that everything that I say is not the end all be all, right? There's the right way, there's the wrong way, and then there's my way, right? So I think you just need to find what works for you, but I'm happy to share whatever tidbits I've picked up along the way.
Yep. Awesome. So let's get started with it. So I think first of all is kind of a choice. Do you seek funding or do you bootstrap it, right? So maybe talk about that. When should a crypto project or just a startup in general seek funding versus I'm gonna do it on my own, I'm gonna bootstrap it, that kind of thing?
I think it really just depends, right? Going from what I said earlier, so let's imagine that there's two founders and they are currently at their jobs, right? And then they're like, hey, I need to focus on this full time to really take it to the next level. That's a typical jump off point for you to be like, oh, we should probably get some money. So that way we can just kind of take a hit in our salaries or whatever that's the case, your lifestyle, and then focus on it, right? So that would be the first thing I would think about. The other thing I would think about is if the capital is going to accelerate whatever you want to accomplish in your timeline, your project or your product within a certain goal. So let's say let's say even if you just bootstrapped it, you weren't working at the same place. So let's say me and you have a startup and we've started up the universe has blessed us enough to be I think I can take 5-6 months and just not, have to work anywhere else. We can bootstrap this ourselves. Our lifestyle is going to be fine. Right. But then we realize, okay, really it's 6 months and it's only 2 of us working here. And if we need an intrepid intern or other people that we want to come on here, we need to compensate them. And that could accelerate our timeline. Yep. So especially if a chain is going to do something big or you see that the market is kind of going there and you're worried about that, you think about okay, if I have the extra capital, right, then can I basically build a team of crazies and then help offload some of this task so I can do some of the other things, right? And that goes to my third point about your workload, right? Like I said, last week, the reality is you're going to be working 9 to 7, 12 to 12, right? 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. Really, it's half your day is gone. The balance of your day is maybe you're getting some rest, rehydration, going to the restroom, goofing off on Instagram, Reddit, OnlyFans, I don't know, whatever your pick is, right? Or playing some video games or working out and stuff like that, or spending time with family. So think about it as if I have someone else, then I can offload some of these things down there. So that's the way I really kind of think about it through that paradigm. And if like I said, there's no right answer or wrong answer. It's just what works for you and your product. And it could be some startups are dude, this is a very capital intensive startup, right? Hardware. Hardware is a capital intensive startup, right? The ongoing joke in all of tech is what's the quickest way to lose $100 million? Go run a fucking hardware startup. You're going to burn through that cash left and right, right? Yep. So it's some things by nature you might require great things. Or it's if you're doing financial instrumentation that it requires a great deal of compliance, yep, right? Legal fees are not cheap. And even though you might have homies that are lawyers, they might give you the homie rate. The reality is over a year's period of time to get stuff done with maybe a regulatory body costs a big fucking bank. Yeah. That would mean you don't want to pay that out of your pocket, and you can be honest with your investors to be to do this is the kind of big boulder we're going to be pushing on, and some of your funds is going to be used for that as well. Yeah. So those are the kinds of frameworks that I would typically look at in understanding whether a startup needs to have outside capital and how much outside capital. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So and then there's different ways that you can get capital, right? So getting investors is not the only way. Obviously, grants are a thing as well. Yeah. Other ways like that. Kind of how would you kind of navigate making decisions on that? Because grants, although it's a lot of times free money, they come with conditions. They have to, maybe they're requiring something that's not in your vision, but you're kind of putting a round hole in a square peg.
Yeah.
I think I said that backwards.
Square
peg in a round hole, whatever.
Triangular pegs, whatever it is, man. If you're into pegging, I'm not, whatever floats your boat, right? That's the reality. But okay, so this is a perfect thing where you have an interesting kind of roadmap of experience as well, right? Because you did a hackathon,
yep,
right? there's prizes for that hackathon.
Yes.
So that could be a possible route that you can be like, hey, and that's a great place to also meet a co-founder and explore a chain and a software stack or a particular problem in a very interesting manner, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of startups, like I said, like just kind of like you just see something, or it could be something that's precipitated through a structured environment like a hackathon. And then you're like, hey, this could be something bigger. So hackathons are one way. You get the bounty, right? And then you can decide from the last question of like, oh, do I have enough bank to like build this out?
Yep.
Right? Grants are also great. I know you do a lot of work with AVAX and stuff like that. Typically like, with the AVAX grant process, it's like milestone related. Mm-hmm. So you have to hit a certain things and do that. And that makes sense too, right? Because they want to just see people who are like, I just took the money and I run,
yep.
right? Because grants don't really come with equity dilution. They don't really come with token like kind of compensations or anything like that. They're just saying, I think you have something here. I think this would be cool to have it built here. So I'm going to give you a little bit of money and we're going to put it on this timeline, right? Of course, and I'd love to hear more about the grants process at AVAX and stuff like that so that people who are interested can choose to get that knowledge. So whenever you want to share that, that'd be great. The other thing is obviously, bootstrapping, right? Like you just basically, and for those of people who are kind of new to tech or don't understand that term, it's like literally you're just spending your own money to like validate or build your company or your product or your proof of concept, right? That's also quite common, right? A lot of people kind of do that. And if you really think about it, you're already bootstrapping by like allocating a lot of neural and temporal capital. So I really think that there's 3 types of capital that's like absolutely critical. And you should think about things as like anything you do along those 3 capital terms, right? The amount of actual capital, like financial capital. You think about the neural capital, that is the amount of like time you're spending thinking about this, or like how many of your neurons are firing trying to solve this problem, right? And then your temporal capital, which is like the amount of time you're spending in relation to facilitating the first 2 kind of points of that triangle. So everyone is bootstrapping in a weird way. So even when you're not even thinking about a startup, guess what? You're kind of bootstrapping. You're already there. You've started the process because you're thinking about a problem. So that's kind of cool. So those people who are not in tech like realize it. Like, I mean, most of the people in our audience are in fact in tech and crypto, but if there's someone who stumbles upon this who's just an ATX, like, and you're thinking about something, I'm like, guess what, bro? You're already bootstrapping, right? Angel investors, right? So there's angel investors can come in on the family and friends round, right? Like when it's really early, where there's people who just you talk to, they think they believe in your idea, they think you're interesting, they think this subject matter could be good to explore. They can allocate a small amount of capital to you too. So that helps you with the bootstrapping. You're not so stuck with it. And then there's a more structured way of doing things, which is like incubators and accelerators. Right? So incubators are typically what occur first. So various chains can have incubators, or an ecosystem can have an incubator, right? So Draper University or Draper has an incubator for Bitcoin stuff. That's a perfect thing. The Bitcoin Startup Lab is an incubator that we came out of, right? Like that, there is Orange DAO, there is Alliance DAO. There's a bunch of these places that do that. And one of the cool things when you go there, and it really depends. Some of these places could be like, you get in, they give you a check, and then basically you work on things that are there. They take a certain percentage of your company in terms of equity or token, and they help you like generate an idea and then formulate and polish that idea to a point where you can pitch it. All right. And we had a good episode about this with Albert from Bitcoin Startup Lab. We need to get someone from Orange DAO also on here, or someone from YC and Alliance DAO as well. That would be great. I think that like the last but most common place everyone goes to is VCs. Right. So in VCs, you could have there's different styles of VCs depending on the stage, right? Like they can go from pre-seed or seed to Series A, Series B, all the way up to the fact that you go public, right? Now, like if you go to a large VC, they might be like an A16Z, for example. Like they write checks all the way from pre-seed all the way to like a Series B, Series C, right? Like going all the way up to an public thing, right? And you've seen this in like Web 2 kind of like startups. In Web 3, it's like a lot more that goes along with the pre-seed, seed, or the angel round, or the family and friends round, or the homies round, right? Like that's basically the family friends round. And then to Series A and Series B. So these are all kinds of mechanisms in wanting to do this. They all have their pluses and minuses, right? For someone who's like never had a startup before, I would say, it's probably good if you think about it a little bit, bootstrapping, you go to an incubator if you can get in, and then start working on your idea from there. Then you can make the choice of like, hey, do I want to just go VC and then basically go straight? Or do I want to go to the accelerator? And all these things are like add more dilution to your company, right? In terms of equity or tokens. Or like you did, you just did the hackathon. You did the hackathon and you're like, hey, I love the stack in AVAX. This is great. The community is great. The culture is great. I love these people that are here. So I think I'm going to apply for a grant. And that's the path you go. But being aware of all these things is like I said, once again, there's no right answer. Yeah. It's just what kind of works for you and your startup, right? Like if you're doing something that's like a big world-beating kind of startup that requires a great deal of capital, regulatory compliance, a great deal of tech, right? You should probably be thinking about either like, let's assume that it comes up organically in a hackathon. You do the hackathon, you maybe do a grant, then you do an incubator if you've never been in a startup life before, then maybe you do an accelerator or you go straight to VC and then you go through the rounds. And yeah, like that's, I don't know if that made a lot of sense. Actually, we kind of covered a lot of ground there. I'm sorry. Yeah. Feel free to stop me at any time and chime in. Like, it is kind of like a weird knowledge gap there that like sometimes I might not even think about things, but it connects in my mind. So I apologize.
Oh no, you're great. You're great. So you covered a lot of different things, right? So you covered, starting off with no funding, just kind of whatever you have in your bank account. We have grants, we have angel investors, we have venture capitals, we have incubators, all different things that you can do. We'll kind of go next into like kind of the pros and cons of each of those things. Yeah. But just to kind of add a little bit on the grant side, I think one of the things that exists within that is like on one hand, if you look at it at the surface level, it looks like it's free money. Yeah. But on the other is, does it take away from your vision? So sometimes the grants will have requirements that specify that it needs to use X tech in your work, and maybe that's not part of your vision. So like we all know when you're creating a product, scope creep is a thing. Yes. And so sometimes you just start tacking on extra crap and it messes up the core of what the product's supposed to be.
Yeah, very much so. That's such a key point that you just hit on there. Like, unfortunately, like, those three capital paradigms, right, are very much something that you need to constantly qualify. And even my fault in my startup, in my startup experience, there are times where I've taken my eye off one of those factors. And like, sometimes we wasted a month or two doing something that probably wasn't there. Yeah. Right. And it's really hard. Like, no one has that secret sauce, but like you said, adding things that are extraneous to that POC, that MVP, or that first launch point in that first phase for your product or your startup is good to avoid. Like if it's excess baggage, just fucking cut it out. And like, yeah, the grant system sometimes could just be like, you have to tag this on there. And then you're like, well, do I really need to do this because I need this grant money? Or you're like, okay, like, should I go another route? And that's another good time where if it seems extraneous, like you could do a grant and then choose not to finish off the grant. And then you just go to the angels and then they raise it, right? Because they'll be like, they'll ask you the question, like, why didn't you complete the grant or the rest of the milestones? And you'll be like, well, I don't think that this particular component is like good for us right now. Yep. Maybe we can come back to it later, but it doesn't get us to that start point that there is there. So very, very good point, bro.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't always have to be a bad thing too. Sometimes that extra challenge is like pushes you to come up with something you wouldn't have otherwise. I kind of think of it like, if you ever watch Iron Chef, where they get this mystery ingredient and they have to make something awesome with it. They don't even know what it is. Yeah. I think it's like that, where it's like, okay, maybe I never thought of putting jackfruit in my meal, but I came up with something amazing that I wouldn't have if you didn't force me to use jackfruit in the ingredient list.
Dude, I'm all about the a la cuisine, bro. Yeah. Like I actually like go to sleep to Iron Chef quite a bit. It's just, it's on Prime and it's like basically there's an entire TV channel for it. So I'll watch that shit, like that and Meat Eater, like, which is in the Hunter channel. I'll just watch that shit for like 12 hours straight. It's kind of scary shit. My wife is like, are you Adderalled out or something? I'm like, no, babe, I don't take any stimulants. She's like, I'm already like cracked out anyways. And she's like, how are you sitting here for like 6 hours just watching this? I'm like, because it's fucking amazing. Yeah. But yes, that is exactly right. Like you get these mystery components and you think you might know some of these components and you're like, oh, fuck. And that's when you and your co-founder or you or your team have to make a decision. And it's not always a convenient decision. Sometimes it's the right decision, sometimes the wrong decision. But like, hopefully you have not overspent resources to the point where you're just like, oh, that was the wrong decision. Yep. But yeah, solid.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And then to some degree too, I think that might exist in some form with investors as well, because depending on how much equity they have or influence they have over what's done in the company, that may kind of change your vision a little bit, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, like investors can have a great deal of, so it's really funny, like, and maybe this will probably come up later on in the conversation in terms of a question, but I have this thing where it's like, especially when you go to like VCs and stuff like that, like or even angels at a point, I really think like you're looking for something more than just capital, right? Yep. Like you're looking for the untangibles or the intangibles, right? Like where it's like they have advice in terms of a particular sector. They have insight into relationships that you should build, relationships with exchanges, to even maybe software experience where they tell you like, yeah, probably bro, you don't need that. Or a product experience where it's like, that's an unnecessary thing you don't need, so you don't need that. And finding those kinds of investors to your startup is very fucking hard. They're far and few. A lot of them are just like, here's your money, give me my equity, just go do your thing, and that's it. And those are like kind of like useless investors in my book. They're like grateful for the money, but like even in my startup and like some other startups that I've worked at, like I've looked at investors and I'm like, this is like a dead weight investor. We took it because of the money is there and that's good. But the reality is like, you know, you want to have the kind of relationship where you can like, and we were talking about this earlier, right? Like you want to have a team where you kind of like want to hang out with each other, but like, and you can talk to each other about shit about work, and you can talk to each other about shit about outside of work.
Yep.
Right. And you kind of want an investor that you can talk to them about the market, the industry, your product, and get advice back, but also just talk to them about the general things that's there and think about what they're seeing. Because the VCs and investors have such a unique vantage point, right? Because their deal flow is looking at like 500 deals a fucking day sometimes, or 500 deals a month, right? They've seen way more things, and they've also seen what works and what doesn't work. Yep. So you should look for investors that really fit your vibe, yep, fit your company's culture, fit your product and where you're going to, and then think about, are they going to do a little bit more to me than just write a check? And some of them don't even ask for like investor updates. If they're not asking for investor updates, it either means that they've written you off, or like they're like one of those bad investor types. They just like kind of allocate the capital and they just fuck off. Yep. And that's like, I mean, I write checks too, like as a very small thing, or I'm an advisor at a few companies. Like there are times where I might drop off the map for a little bit because I'm so focused on my stuff, but then I come back in and I always check in with them.
Yep.
Usually you want people like that because they're like invested in your success, right? It goes beyond just the money. Yep. They generally want you to prosper. And even if your startup fails, that way you have a relationship with someone that is going to be like, hey, like maybe this blew up for whatever reasons, but like now you and them have this bond where it's like, oh, we can talk to each other about this stuff. Maybe the next startup that comes along, there might be an investor that's there. You could help them with other things as well. So I really think that you should really find the right fit for you there. Don't look at it only from the capital framework.
Yeah. No, totally. And like not having ever started a startup, but having watched Shark Tank a ton.
Yeah.
See how important that is, right? So a lot of the times, like, sure, one of the sharks might have a lot of money to offer, but if you need Mark Cuban's connections or, you know, Barbara's like mentorship or whatever that might be, like that's more valuable in a lot of cases than just the money.
Yeah.
And some projects even come on that they don't even necessarily need the money. They just want the mentorship. And they're willing to give up some equity for that.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that, you know, typically many people don't think about. They don't think about advisors, right? Like, so you should really be, like, let's be very honest, like, you know, and this is kind of like my whole thesis is like, Columbus gets a lot of fucking credit for like, you know, discovering the new world and America and all this stuff. But like typically, you know, the reality is like that ship was stocked with a bunch of other crazy motherfuckers who were like, yo, let's fucking go find those engines, right? Right? You need a bunch of crazy motherfuckers, right? That's not only your team, but I look at them as also your investors. I look at them also as your advisors because they're going to be helping you, you know, navigate that zigzag to find that new world. Right. And it might not be the new world that you want. You might not find India. You might find America. And that's okay too. Right. Like a lot of startups kind of like evolve and like change from what their original goal goes. And that's what, you know, that's what people say when they're pivoting. Sometimes there's a complete pivot where you like completely change your product. Sometimes there's a minor pivot where you change your approach to your product or where you deploy your product and all that stuff. Advisors and investors can help you a great deal. So getting an advisor that is like, hey, let's say you have a consumer grade startup and you come from a DeFi background. Getting an advisor that has consumer grade like kind of experience is always great because then you can bounce that idea off of them. And, they could also be an angel and an advisor. Like literally yesterday, I was in calls with investors and advisors, and I love every one of my advisors and investors. Like they're absolutely great. We have VCs, we have angels. We came through an incubator, so I call the founders of the incubator a lot. I talk to them, and I have monthly calls or bi-monthly calls with them just to catch up because like they see so many different things, and like you want to use them as a resource, and that's their goal, right? Their goal is to maximize your success by sharing that expertise. Yep. So you can also just, even before you go the VC route, you think about getting advisors. Get advisors in a certain domain knowledge. So like, say I'm shipping something and I don't know shit about AVAX, I would take you as my advisor because like, hey, Luke knows way more about AVAX than I've ever forgotten. Or, like say we're doing something that's super infra related, our intern, like he might have way more information on that than I would. And, he can come on as an advisor or even as a team member. Like that's the way you should really look at it. You don't expect to be like the end all be all solution for everything. Trying to think that you can do everything and be great at everything is just like, it's not only madly egotistical, it's just like a pure fallacy. So use them to your advantage and let them help you. Yeah. So,
Yeah, no, that team is just such a key element of success, right? So one thing I thought would be good to just clarify for listeners. So the difference between a VC and an angel investor. So can you talk just a little about how that nuance between how they're involved and that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So like basically, so I can be an angel by writing a check. Right. I don't write a fund. I don't have a VC fund. I'm not managing, like I don't have LPs that are giving me an allocation of money. I'm not doing a 2 and 20 and stuff like that. It's just like I earn a salary. I have, exits from other stuff and I take that cash and then, or those assets, I either liquidate it or allocate those assets to support other people in the space. So think that's an angel, right? A VC is much more of a formalized structure where there's a group of, you could be a one-man VC too, that's fine, or a one-woman VC too, that's also fine. But usually these are a group of people that either come from product, tech, or quantitative backgrounds or business backgrounds. And what they do, and each VC is different, right? Each of them have what is known as an investment thesis. It's basically like sometimes just a one-liner, or sometimes it's like 60 pages long, right? Mike kind of attributed this, right? When he was talking about investment memos, right? Yeah. For like talking to his people in the syndicate to be like, hey, do you want to fund this? And that kind of directs their focus of like allocating capital. So what it is that larger money players or other funds can basically be like, hey, I have a thesis on my fund about looking only at infrastructure. And you come and you say, hey, I have a thesis in AVAX that only looks at DeFi. You should allocate to my fund, either as a family office or another fund, so that I can focus your capital over there. And they basically accumulate this pile of money, and they raise rounds for this, where they could raise a round for like 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, 300 million. And each of these rounds for these funds have a specific focus in terms of what they want to do. And these guys go out and allocate that capital. Sometimes they say that it's a 10-year horizon. That is, they make a bunch of bets, and within a period of 10 years, they're looking to recoup that investment, either by selling to other people in higher rounds or exiting the company at some point, or you have a token release thing, they get paid out in the token, right? Or if it's an equity round, they're like looking to see you really go public at some point, right? And that's what really a VC is. It's usually a collection of individuals who are entrusted with a larger fund's capital or larger LP's capital, and they allocate it in a specific sector that they think they feel compelled about. Now, there are some VCs who will just write checks everywhere. That's also fine. Or they might have separate funds in which they have fund number 1 is only DeFi, fund number 2 is only infra, and they can go across chains. But really the differentiation is, I guess, the formality of organization and also the check sizes as well. Like some angels are not going to write $1 million check to you. That's going to be coming from a VC or beyond, right? So an angel might be someone who goes from 0 all the way to like 100,000 or 200,000, right? But like usually I would say an angel in my mind is 0 to like 50K, right? Anything beyond that, I think it's like looking for more of a formalized structure or a syndicate style structure. And we didn't cover syndicates, but syndicates is like a group of people like that are angels coming together that's created an organization that they allocate money. So like Echo is a syndicate. The Lao is a syndicate. It's like a venture DAO that's there.
Nice.
You know, the Taco, which I forget his name, Ferris is involved with. He's also part of ATX DAO. That's another syndicate. These guys can also write checks anywhere from, you know, 0 to like 500K, because it's a collection of people pooling their money that's going through an accredited vehicle and then allocating capital.
Nice.
So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, super helpful.
Oh yeah, no worries.
So we talked a lot about what you look for in a VC or an angel, other investors. What do they look for in you?
Well, once again, it depends on where you are in the rounds, right? So when you come to pre-seed, and even if you're an angel, right, like you're really looking to make founder bets, right? Because it's so hard to analyze like a product, because there's not enough there for you to really determine, like, is this product going to be working, right? Like, that doesn't mean that like you can just show up and be, you know, all super handsome and dolled up, or super beautiful and dolled up, and they'll write you a check and that's good to go. Right. We've seen that shit happen during like very frothy markets, but like that's not necessarily a good return on your investment. Right.
Yep.
It's like what you're looking for is like the typical things is like, okay, maybe academic background, but like usually what I've found in my thing, and that's probably because I was just a bad student continuously. All right. And I really didn't, if there's something that doesn't interest me, I'm not going to waste my time in it. And there was a lot of that. Looking at you, accounting, still hold that record for failing it continuously. But that being said, like it could be academic background. They're looking for people who have great academic backgrounds and went to top universities. And as a result, it's really good, right? Like, so if you're doing like a med tech startup, coming from great medical university, having research, all that stuff adds a great deal of credence that makes you way more sellable for your idea for an angel or a VC or to back you, right? Because it's a very domain knowledge heavy expertise thing. The other thing is like personality type and understanding, like, are they just gonna try and bend the world to their will, right? That's such a hard thing to quantify, right? Like, are they waking up? Like, you're never on every single day, right? But usually, like, over a standard deviation of time, like a period of time, like a time series analysis, we see that there's some individuals who will just wake up and be like, I'm just gonna fucking do it, bro. Yeah. You know, the flesh is weak, but deeds are everlasting, right? So, like, you want those kinds of people. Right, a little 40K lore over there, but like those kinds of characteristics, like, are they charismatic? Are they charming? How do they think? How quickly do they think? Who do they know in their network? If they have no network, that's also fine. But like, are they capable of building things on it? Are they capable about, like, if their analysis is wrong, that's fine. Do I think that they're honest enough to admit that they're wrong? Right. All these kinds of characteristics that typically that you want to look for is like, I think what angels or VCs also look for. And they do, sometimes there's no DD. Sometimes it's just like, dude, I love this idea. I love the fact that you guys actually, like, if you're bootstrapping and you already built half of it, right? That's how we finished our round very quickly for our startup, right? Like, we built the product kind of like before it was even there. Yeah. And they were like, you already fucking did this? I'm like, and our team was like, yeah, we kind of did. And they were like, okay, give me 10 minutes. And then they wrote half our round. Nice. And then they gave us a lot of warm intros to other investors. So those kinds of characteristics are really what's there. And also, like, have a good past, right? Like, you know, the industry is kind of small. Like, not everything works out to your favor. That's, you know, because of, you know, maybe team culture mechanics or the product or the market mechanics and stuff like that. But, you know, if you've really tried your best at doing everything and you're trying to honest and trying to pay it forward every single time, that reputation will come along with you. Yep. Like, those are the things that many people don't understand. And it's like, that's why I love like working with people that genuinely are rooting for other fucking people.
Yep.
Because it's so fucking hard, right? So it's like, you know, like, you're rooting for my success as much as I'm rooting for your success. Like, 100%. Both of us are rooting for Kamish, our intern behind this. Shout out to Kamish's success as much as he's rooting for our success. I think those kinds of things are things that are very good for your reputation and for your own personal brand. Yep. Also, people say that, you know, you should have a big personal brand on Twitter and stuff like that. I don't know if that's necessarily a big thing for me, because, like, I'm a person that, like, is on Twitter and I shitpost a lot on Twitter, but there are times where I'm just, like, not on Twitter at all. Every once in a while I'll show up in a space, you know, sometimes like that. But, like, usually like, I think it's kind of a negative thing for me. If I see a founder on Twitter just fucking posting all day, I'm like, bro, like, what are you fucking doing? Like, you should be working your thing.
Right.
Like that's what it is. Or going to go help someone get better at something else. Like, that's what it is. So yeah, like I looked at a character set to be succinct, which I have not been. Character, maybe academic background, previous work backgrounds, whether it's in Web3, Web2, you don't have to have the work background as well. Like, there's 15-year-olds. I know a 13-year-old that got hired by Eigenlayer.
Wow.
Right? Like, he has a great work background though. But like, I mean, like for 13, it was like, holy fucking shit. But like, that's also a thing. So, but I think the biggest thing that speaks volumes is the intangibles, really. And that's hard to quantify, but that's why like they're very good at like, sniffing things out. They're like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Why do you think this way? And all those things are good things that you should be starting to develop the skill set to have those characteristics or amplify those characteristics, because it's not only going to make you a better founder, it's just going to make you a better person of the community that's there. And I think it genuinely just makes you a better human being, right? Like, not being a douchebag and actually wanting people to be successful and having a better society worldwide. That's a good thing. That's like something that's applicable. That's a positive energy that takes your startup itself. And that's infectious, right? So these are the things that I think like a lot of founders, like when VCs and firms look at when they're looking at founders. Outside of that, then it dives into, is your product good? Or is your thesis on like where the market's going good? Is the area that you're focused on good? Is the tech stack good? Like, all those things are more tangible. They can be really quantified to a certain extent in a better way than the intangibles of the founder and the team, right? So yeah. No, that's a large data drop. But like, the thing is, like, you can see it too, right? When you did the hackathon, I bet you saw a bunch of teams and you could see the dynamics of these individuals, how they work, how committed they are to do this thing. What are they working on? How is their energy while they're doing it? Are they having fun? Are they not having fun? All this stuff is very good indicators about like these personality types and those mixes.
Yeah. Yeah, tons of different vibes in the hackathon. So there were some people that were just like grinding, had not slept in the 48 hours, like that. Some people that you could tell that the team had a really good dynamic. Others, I think, were just there for the free food. There were a couple of folks that were just like, so where we were working was actually near like the lounge area, just because it's where it started and we just never moved from that spot. But there were so many people that were just like chatting for hours, like, are you guys building something? Like, what is happening here?
69% of the crowd is usually the people who are there for the free food. Dude, I'm very for the pizza and the beer, bro. That's what it is. But yeah, like those kinds of things speak volumes, right? Like how many hackathons have you done? You don't have to do a bunch of hackathons, but have you tried it? Like, and it goes to the thing, like, that's why I say, that's why I'm like very happy that you actually did the hackathon, right? Because like, you're like, now I see what it's like, and it's infectious. You kind of like it.
Oh yeah. And it was, so I will say, and I think we talked about it on the show before, but doing that, like, I was super nervous to do it. So from a tech side, like, I learned things in school, but my coding ability is very, very beginner. And so like how much of that I'm going to need to know, like my role was more on like the marketing side anyway. So it didn't really matter as much, but the thing we ended up building was a highly complex technical solution, which my partner in the project is genius and did a great job building it. But I was nervous at first, like, okay, am I fit to be here with everybody else that's doing stuff? And it was just awesome. It was an awesome experience. Like the vibes were great. Totally opened my eyes to like a whole new element of what happens in this space. So if somebody's listening and just considering a hackathon, whether it's a virtual one or preferably an IRL one, definitely give it a try. I mean, you don't necessarily need to have very specific like coding skills to be one. Like projects need people to put together the pitch deck. They need somebody that has expertise in whatever the solution's solving for or that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely would recommend them.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Like there's literally nothing I can add to that. Like that is so true. Yeah. When's your next hackathon?
Oh, I don't know, dude.
You're like, I think 2 is good enough for me for right now.
But let's talk a little bit about the experience of getting the funding, right? So, so if you do a hackathon, maybe you're going to earn some prize money, which we did, not nearly enough to start a company with, but was still a cool experience. But so forgetting kind of the grant side of things, because I think we could probably do a whole like deep dive into like how you qualify for grants and that kind of thing, and they're all different, so it's hard to say. But
Well, how do you qualify, like for the AVAX grant process?
Yeah.
How do you qualify for an AVAX grant?
Yeah, so there's a few different ones that are out there. So one of them is tied to an incubator, which is called Codebase. So that one, it's a highly competitive process. I think this last round there were about 400 applicants.
Wow.
Of which me and my partner were one of them.
That's amazing.
So we made it through the first round. We didn't make it beyond that, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But out of 400-ish applicants, they have 5
Wow.
that are chosen to go through the incubator. So it's very competitive.
Yeah, it's a high attrition rate.
So yeah, and so for that you get like mentorship. Actually, Brock, who was on the podcast, but then also he won our pitch competition.
Yeah.
He was one of the participants in the last cohort of Codebase.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Brock's like everywhere, bro. Shout out to Brock.
Yeah, for sure. So, which Brock, if you're listening, congrats on the joining the DAO and for all your work with Codebase.
Yeah, good stuff, man. It's good seeing you. Don't be a stranger. Come, please hang out a little bit more over here.
Yes.
You know?
And officially, Brock, you are our first shout out on the pod, so just know that.
Well, no, that's technically. Is it really?
Like shouting out to somebody listening.
Oh, yeah. That's, well, Kamish is listening. Our intern.
Okay. Second.
Don't. Yeah.
Second one, Brock.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right, yeah.
So, but back to the ways that you can get funding there. So, Codebase is one of them. There's also a few different foundation grant programs that are out there. One of them's called Incubators. That's usually meant for like infrastructure. There's a separate but parallel program called Viability AI that is focused on using AI on Avalanche. And then there's Retro 9000, which is another one. That one's focused on a split between infrastructure as well as building your own L1.
Yeah.
And that one's kind of cool because it's not so much of a prove that you can build it and then we give you money. It's build it and then if it's good, then you can get money.
Yeah.
So there's those. There's some other ones that we have within Team One. For those that don't know, I'm part of Avalanche Team One, which is kind of a member-driven separate organization that relates to Avalanche. But we just launched a mini grant program in India. So there's grants that are on the smaller end, so like 10,000 and below, but just to kind of get projects started and things like that. It's kind of a pilot for something we're going to do more broadly.
That's cool.
But yeah, a lot of different ones out there. Some of them have different requirements than others, but yeah.
That's great. I mean, for anyone who's listening and wanting to have interest in building on AVAX, firstly, I guess reach out to Luke because that is a lot of data that I mean, I know you've pointed me in that direction. I looked at the website, but like you just saved me like maybe like 6 hours instead of just like perusing that website by you just give me this data right now.
Yeah.
And it's cool, right? Like, the culture over there at AVAX is pretty special. So they're good people there.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so let's talk about the fundraising process. So,
yeah, sure.
So maybe so angel investors and VCs, we'll kind of keep it to those two. Like,
sure.
What does that process look like? I know a lot of it probably has to do with networking. That was, you did a huge circuit of attending every conference known to man around the globe.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But go ahead and tell us about kind of what that is like.
Yeah. So a lot of it is so let's imagine the market's a pumping. Right. So the market's pumping. Everyone's great. Everyone's having a good time. Like you go to an Avalanche Summit and you're excited about building an Avalanche and, maybe you're going through the grant process or maybe you're not going through the grant process and the market's pumping and then you could finish your entire round there. You could say, I'm raising 500K, I'm raising $1 million. That entire round could get written there itself. Right. Word can pass, especially if you have a good deck. They think that, you and your team are great, that it could be that. It could be a thing where even if the markets are great, maybe it's you need to get a mixed bag of investors from other places as well. So you go to a couple of conferences and those come along that way. It could be angels or VCs. But with VCs and angels, typically from a conference, it's not like they write the check literally at the conference itself. Usually, there's a portion of time where they look at the deck, they review that, they have a call with you, then maybe there's a follow-up call, then maybe they might write an investment committee memo because they have to be responsible for this money, right? So they need to get everyone else to sign off on it. And as a result, there's a little bit of DD. Now, as Mike said, sometimes that memo is literally a one-liner. Company, great. Founder, kind of an all-star. Send money now. It's literally could be that. Yep. Sometimes it's 10 pages long. I know we talked to a fund where literally a really great guy, great fund, would have loved to have him aboard. He was dude, we just launched this fund. We wrote a 15-page memo on you, but unfortunately, we're going to have to pass on this round, right? Because we want something more of a conservative kind of investment for our first investment. And that could be the process too, right? So you're not going to get a hit rate all the time, right? Not everyone's going to love you, right? It's thinking you're going to go to the bar and thinking every guy there wants to fuck you or every girl wants to fuck you. It's just not the reality, right? it's kind of like a pattern matching game. Your pattern matching increases based on your due diligence of like understanding who this angel is, understanding who this VC is, and then you reaching out to them or asking for soft interest for them. Sometimes you can just cold DM and cold email them, but then the likelihood of like them actually responding to you is very low, right? So it goes back to the idea of like, and you don't have to sometimes even go to conferences. Sometimes like, because your network is just so good, you could just pick up the phone and just talk to a VC and be like, hey, I have this idea. It's been on my board for a little while. What do you think about it? And they're like, I fucking love it. Like, let me set you up with this, and then you're done.
Nice.
You know, like, or it could be like, hey, I don't know, this is not for me. Let me set you up with someone else. Maybe you can talk to them, validate more, and then go on. Maybe that's the route. But like, typically the process of like, whether it's angel or VC, irrespective of where you meet them, like I met one of our VCs at a conference at MIT because we're on the same pee break schedule.
Yeah.
I'm dead fucking serious. I drink a plethora, like a copious amount of water. And this individual and me were literally on the same pee schedule. And I was like, bro, we're on the same pee schedule. And we didn't even know each other from Adam. And literally walked out and we just started chatting. And it found out that like we knew a bunch of people. And he was like, okay, at that time he was investing in our area of our work. And then later on, he went on to be an angel and then, you know, working at another place. And he was like, dude, I want to write this check for you. So it could be something like that, right? So you never know where you're going to meet meet your investor, meet your co-founder, meet, you know, who you're going to be working with and spending time with when you're not spending time with your partner, right? So that goes back to the character thing that I said, like, you know, be curious, be exciting about learning about everything and anything. Like, you know, because like, you get a pretty short life. You should be curious about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so, back to the DD process. I'm sorry. The DD process typically works like you meet, you exchange contacts. You might send the deck, the team profiles, which might be included in the deck. You might have a demo. You send that demo, right? And then if they're interested on it, they will respond back, or you follow up with them, and they'll say, "Hey, let's schedule a meeting." You get on a call with them, or it might be an IRL meet. You come in, if it's a hardware demo, like you actually demo it to them there itself, or you talk through the thing, or you talk through the idea, right? The more further along you are in like actually developing that idea, the better it is, because then you have more to show. It's not just a thesis or a direction that's generally going. And then usually if they're in, like, you know, you could get lucky like us, and then, you know, you could have someone write half the round. But also, you could just be like, hey, we have to write that investment memo, and then you have to pass it on to the investment committee. They agree, and they could do it. Or you could be talking to the founder of the firm, and they're like, I fucking love this. I love this team. Let's do this. And that's it. You're greenlit. And then, you know, you send your safe or your safe and warrant or your token warrant or whatever. They legal from their side looks at all this stuff, and then they send you funds in whatever kind of functionality that you guys have prearranged it for. But usually there is a process. Sometimes these windows of this stuff can be months. Sometimes it could be weeks. Sometimes it could be days or minutes, right? Like our first check came in 10 minutes, which was wild. And I was blown away by that too. Shout out to our first set of investors, CMS, absolute chads. Love those guys. Really, really great. And like, you know, I'm not just tooting their horn there, but like, for example, they're a group of like investors who like you want to talk to, right? Like if I have an issue, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call the guy who like decided to pull the trigger on us, and then including the founder of the fund, and like I can talk to them about whatever is there. I'm like, hey, I have this issue. Do you have like 10 minutes to get on a call with me? The dude's running a fucking huge fund and like has like 500 companies, and he's willing to just come on and talk to me and then help me do that. Like that, there's far and few kind of investors that are like that and have that culture that want to do that and also look at things in a different way, like under founder-focused funds. So like, you know, great fucking fund. So if anyone's looking to raise, like the first person I usually send them and they reach out to me, I'm like, I will make an intro to CMS almost immediately. And sometimes they may not invest, but the reality is like they are great people. If they're your first no, that's a great fucking start. If they're your first yes, that's a great fucking start anyways. Because you're started out with people who are at least like interested in wanting you to be successful. But that process typically works in this manner. Usually it takes sometimes like 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it can take months, depending on the size of the deal, all the people on the cap table that you're looking to get. And there is no right or wrong kind of methodology for it. Yeah. And that's really it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, so it's a lot of great information. So if somebody's listening and like was ready to get started in the process, or just like what like lessons learned have you had in the process? So like even this is not your first startup that you're running now. You've run several of them. So I'm sure some work better than others in terms of fundraising. There's some things you've learned along the way in terms of what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
What would you share as just kind of maybe like 2 or 3 like tips for somebody that is going to be starting the fundraising process, like focused on VCs and angels?
So one, don't start raising in November or December, right? It's the end of the fiscal year. Like people are going through holiday season. You're not going to get any, you could have the best startup in the world, right? You could be fucking Steve Jobs, but the reality is I don't know, probably Steve Jobs would probably raise during, the middle of Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Christmas, and he would probably get funded. Like he'd be oversubscribed. But usually during that time, everyone is like dealing with family stuff or holiday season, and like the markets kind of slow down as they go into that lull. So don't do that. Don't start that at that point, right? In crypto, I would say that understand the temporal kind of where you are in the year, and understand how that would match with the raise season, right? And also if you're going to go to a bunch of conferences, right? So like this is like, what is this, July? Right? Yep. It's August or something like that?
End of July.
Yeah, end of July. So
when
like
this comes out, it'll be August.
Okay, perfect. So like, we're going into conference season, right? Like so September, conference season opens up, you have Token, you have Korea Blockchain Week, you have all this stuff leading up into it. So that gives you a lot of chance for you to meet with a bunch of investors IRL. Think about that. So where you are in the year, and what's coming up in the conference season, where you can go to, where you can't go to, how you can allocate your time, and then talk to investors there. The other thing I would suggest is do your homework, right? Like, or at least try your best to do your homework, right? Like, like I said earlier, not everyone in the bar wants to go home with you, right? So like, understand like who and what you're looking for. Understand what you are. Understand what your product is, understand what your team is and your culture is to the best of your ability, and then try and find VCs that have invested in that same lane or are looking for exposure in that lane. And then look at like when they entered, when did they exit? Talk to other founders that they invested in, right? And then see what was the experience like. Like we've said no to investors because they were just the wrong culture fit. Like I could see ahead of the line, like they're probably going to give us advice to go in this direction. And I'm like, I don't think fundamentally that's where the market is going. So like maybe it's not the right case, right? So you can say no to people too. Don't be afraid of saying that, right? Like getting good at saying no is something that I've been trying to do and get better at, especially as my time is getting like really eaten up. So that's a great thing generally for founders, FYI. If you don't have that skill set, start getting good at it. So I would say homework is the second one. And the third thing I would say is like have like an understanding of your burn rate. Right? Like, and what do you think you would need to do to get stuff done to get to that initial launch point, right? That will tell you kind of like where your round size is, like what your valuation should be. And then it'll also tell you kind of like how many people you want on your cap table, how many angels you take on, how many syndicates, incubators, VCs, and all that kind of stuff. Having those 3 things kind of thinking about and lined up a little bit will make your raise like a lot easier. Obviously, you've thought about the kind of round and stuff like that because you should be maybe including that in your deck, right? But just those things in general, I think would be the 3 big pieces of advice I give.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because I think some people like that might come across it thinking that, the more money, the better. Yep. But I think that's not probably necessarily the case. Like sometimes,
yes,
because that money comes with trade-offs.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
I also think like, this is kind of like the open secret in crypto. I think we're not going to call out any names here, but like both you and I and Kamish and like know like how many funds have allocated a substantial amount of money to like certain projects and they do absolutely nothing. Yep. Like absolutely nothing. Like basically the project is now kind of like a hedge fund itself. Like they could just take that money and then they basically allocate it and get yield on USDC. And that's what they take care to pay off their OPEX on it, the startup. And that's fine. But it's like all that money is gone there, right? And it's like, well, why the fuck did I give you all this money? I could have basically taken it and just like created a better strategy myself and allocated this money.
Yep.
So raising ungodly amounts of money like makes sense for certain things. Like if you're building an L1, if you're building an ecosystem, but if you're like building a DeFi app and you ask for like, I want $100 million, I'm like, bro, like, like what the fuck, right? Like, I think fundamentally, I think you have a wrong understanding.
Right.
Right. That's the thing that I would really think about. I also think like, I don't know, personally for me, I think it's a mistake in one of my startups that I'm working on is that like, maybe we took a little too less money, right? I always am the firm belief that I want that Damoclean sword, like kind of like on my neck so that every single morning I wake up and I'm like, go, 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 right? And that could be a really good thing because then, like, hey, nothing is guaranteed tomorrow. Like I have to do this today.
Yep.
Right. You can lights a fire underneath your ass like no other thing. It adds a lot of stress. There is no doubt about that. But like, startups are inherently stressful, right? Like there are people who can kind of like fold underneath pressure. And then there's people who just rise to the occasion and meet the pressure. Right. And like, there is a thing like, like diamonds are made through compression. Right? Like that's what it is. My dad always said that. I never really understood it until like I kind of grew up and I got a few gray hairs and I realized I'm like, oh, these gray hairs are a result of not age. It's just because like there's so much shit going on. You're putting out fires every single day and you're getting a little bit better every single day. And like, you could deal with the pressure today, but then like, that's the thing where I say like, think of it as an evolution. Every day is an evolution. Like you survive today's evolution.
Yep.
So tomorrow wake up and then go kick, punch it in the dick and then survive the next day's evolution. Right. And that's what you got to do. So, but generally the advice that all investors give, right, is that if you can raise more money than you think you need, take it. And it's kind of true because it saves a lot of stress from you, saves a lot of stress from your team. Maybe you might not be able to hire the best talent. And I also have this thesis where like maybe hiring the best talent isn't the right thing for the job. It's not like, you don't want the best, you want the right man or woman for the job.
Yep.
Right? That's what I fundamentally believe. Like you could be a rocket scientist. You could have all the pedigree that says it's great, but like the right person for the job might not be that person.
Yeah.
So you might not need to have that capital outlay in terms of salary or comp to give that person. Right. So that could save you a little bit of money too. But like that being said, you should, if they're giving you a little bit more money, take the extra money. Now, if you're asking for 10 million and you get 100 million, I'd be like, yeah, then like you said, to your point, how much dilution are you giving up?
Yep.
What is the equity? What is the token? What are they expecting out of you? How much domineering are they going to do at you? Because there's some VCs who will just micromanage you.
Yep.
Right? They'll be like, okay, this is great. Good job. Now go sit there. Let me like basically quarterback this whole thing. And that could be good too. You could want that because maybe you don't have that full set of expertise and that skill set. So then it becomes like a great course for you to see what it's like to manage these multiple things. Sure. But most founders that I know, right? And you, like, for example, I think you kind of want to be the arbiter of your own fate. So like, I want as many turns at bat so I can learn and make the mistakes. Like no one learns how to hit a home run by just watching people hitting home runs. No, you go to the fucking batting cages, you go up there, get hit in the face, get hit in the back, and you get struck out like 90% of the time. But eventually over that period of time, you will start hitting, you'll get on base, then you'll be knocking them out of the park.
Yep.
So go try it. So yeah, that's the way I would think about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ash, this has been amazing, man. Really, really appreciate you kind of breaking that all down. It's something that for a lot of folks, me included, like knowing just how that process all worked can seem very mysterious. And I think you made it very understandable and a lot of great advice. So really appreciate it, man.
No, of course. Thank you. And like, it's not just me and Luke or Kamish, who's, our intern here. You should talk to any one of us if you see us at a conference or see us around about these topics or anything else. But like, you can also go up to a VC or a fund and be like, hey, like, tell me about this process. And each one of them have their own like kind of machinations about what they want to do. But like, you want to learn as much as you can, right? And do that. And generally what I find is like everyone in this industry is super welcoming and like super open because it's like you're on the frontier and like there's always D-bags around, right? But I find like for every single D-bag you meet, like I find like 20 people that are like great people that I want to talk to. They'll give me tons of advice. So like if you don't know something, you can go research it, but it's also like just nice to just be able to pick up the phone or text someone and then cut the learning curve that way. So do that. Like it's a welcoming space, and I think you'll be better for it, and they'll be better for it.
Yep. I love it. Awesome, man. Well, listeners or viewers, if you're watching the episode, if you do have any questions about the process that we didn't answer today, definitely drop it in the comments. So we mostly monitor Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. If you happen to be using a different podcast app, we might not see it, but if you drop it there, we'll try to answer that for you. And again, Ash, this has been great, man. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. And also thank you for sharing the grant and the hackathon experience. I mean, so many people don't realize that like they can become founders by going through that process. They work for these places, but they work in only one capacity of this role. Going to do the hackathon tells them, like, gives them that holistic experience. And you know, you're a walking, breathing example of someone who's probably going to making that jump at some point. And that, you know, that hackathon in London and the AVAX Summit is what helped you transform you into that person. So that's great, man. Thank you for sharing, and happy to come on and do this. And yeah, for everything that I said, anything wrong that I said, discount all of that. If I said anything right, you know, thanks. But I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Of course, no worries.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, y'all.